Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden.
And please don't click off. You've not clicked on the last episode or the episode before. Hayden has for the third time in a row worn the same shirt. Don't worry about it.
I also wore it last week when we didn't do an episode. Just in place.
I'm starting to think that's all you wear when you're not in school.
Well.
And I've got a bit of a theory. And the reason is because this week I was speaking to some children on the playground who are in your class, who I taught previously. We're obviously talking about you. We'll come on to that later. But she said to me, yeah, I call him Blue Shirt Man because he always wears the same blue shirt.
It's so true. I have... Right, just to explain myself here a bit.
Please do, because I am about to absolutely expose you on this. Because
Okay.
I think people will think that what you do is mental. So go on.
What do you mean?
Go on, carry on.
Okay.
Do what you say.
Well, I've actually got like 12 to 15 shirts in my wardrobe.
Okay, how many can fit?
Okay, let's say I've got 15 shirts, right?
Yeah.
12 of them I haven't worn in over 2 years.
Why?
Because I put on weight. And I was like, no, I still refuse to accept the fact that I shouldn't be. I need to fit into those shirts.
Okay, that's fine. That leaves you with 3 that fit, right?
3 that
and
fit.
You're only in school for 3 days a week.
Yep.
So naturally, obviously,
I wear one a day.
Always.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I do now.
You do now.
I do now.
Wait. Now.
You can talk about my past all you want, Dylan. You're trying to embarrass me.
No, I'm not.
Right.
You defend yourself and have reasons.
Look, I have 3 shirts.
Okay.
They're all blue.
Yeah.
And I wear them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They get washed and wear them the next week. And I wear the same 3 on rotation.
So you've never worn the same shirt, 2 days in a row.
Not anymore, because these are what I call my fat shirts. All right, because they're like the ones that when I'm at my biggest, I wear these 3. It just happens to have been that I've been on them for 2 years.
You've been on a fasting diet for 2 weeks, so obviously you've moved out of
We'll
there.
talk about that in a minute. But I used to.
Yeah.
If I got home and my shirt wasn't like particularly, if it wasn't smelly, basically,
Right.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'll be right for another day.
That's good.
Take it off and hang it up. I can't do it anymore. I sweat too much.
So that's how you judge whether clothes go in the washing machine or not. If they stink. If they stink, bye.
Lauren would be like, what about all that bacteria and yellow stains? Like, no,
it doesn't smell.
Doesn't smell. It's going back on the next day. So sometimes, and my whole point was, I wanted to reduce washing. That was it.
I mean, it's a massive reduction going from 3 shirts to 2.
Have you ever ironed a shirt?
Yes.
Well, I haven't. So, and I don't plan to start soon.
Wait, so you're trying to reduce stuff? You don't even do it. Do you wash your shirts? Do you do the washing at home?
Very rarely.
Do you do the ironing?
No.
So you had no benefit at all from wearing the shirt twice.
I feel bad because I know Lauren does the ironing, and I'm like, I don't want to give her clothes of mine to do.
It's funny because I do that, but with my trousers. I will often wear my trousers every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, I always do that.
But I think that's normal.
Yeah.
Because you've got underwear. And
I'll wear them for a term.
I'm not. You've actually never changed trousers since you started teaching.
My trousers get washed probably once every 2 weeks.
All you do is change the waistline every year or 2.
Yeah, I get a new belt.
I'm up to 36 now. I don't know what you're on, by the way. It's 36.
36 is my current size, yeah.
I got to 36. And that's when I thought, hey, do something about that. So, as you all know, anyway, off on a tangent. Very quickly on that point of the waistline. You've been doing a challenge with me every day. Mm-hmm. Okay. And your challenge, just for anyone who wasn't listening, didn't hear that, Hayden's challenge every single day. And we're going to see how far we can go between
January
us.
1st.
Since January the 1st, New Year. How many days in a row can we both do our particular challenge? Mine was to cut out sugar from my diet. Hayden's was to go on a fasting diet. Now, cutting out sugar for me was more about how I feel. Yeah, it was more about like, I want to get clarity. When I don't eat sugar, I'm less groggy. I feel less tired. I feel better. And like the weight loss is kind of like a separate thing that happens as a result. It's a bonus. Whereas you chose fasting specifically just to lose weight.
Yeah, I just want to drop a few pounds.
Yeah, so how much have you lost in?
Well, I started. I'm going to share my weight because who cares? I started on.
You don't have to.
No, I'm going to.
Okay.
Because I don't really care. Okay. Actually,
fair enough.
I started on 15 stone 2.
Yep.
I did drop down. I did drop down to 14 stone 13.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm on 15 stone 1.
What happened?
So I've lost a pound.
What happened?
Wow. I've got a bit lazy with the old. This is the problem, right? And
Wait. You're not fasting anymore?
No, I'm still doing it.
Right,
I'm still doing it. The problem with this diet, and I know you're going to rinse me about it anyway.
I'm not.
The problem with this diet is I can do the fasting easy.
Yeah.
I can not eat for 16 hours a day.
Sure.
But when it comes to the 8 hours where I can eat, technically there are no rules. Like, it always says, just eat a normal amount, eat what you want in those 8 hours. It's the 16 hours that count because you're something about ketosis. You're going to ketosis and ketones, bloody, blah.
Did you get this off like an Instagram ad? Was this like...
No, we got it off of some app that I was using to track it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, brilliant. What it doesn't mean What it doesn't mean is you can eat a whole angel cake. It doesn't mean you can eat a pack of 4 Whispers. It doesn't. These are the kind of things that I need to stop doing.
I walked into your kitchen this morning and there was a 4-pack of Whispers, a 4-pack of Ripples, and some Whisper Golds.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what this is, and I knew what this was from. So yesterday I came home and on the side I said to Lauren, "Oh, my mum's been round then."
Oh,
because every time my mum comes round, she always brings like.
Is she an
treats.
enabler?
Yeah, she's an enabler. I blame my mum. But so in all seriousness, if I actually want to see results, like you're seeing results, you can talk about in a minute. I do need to also basically do your diet, maybe a light version, because if I'm doing the fasting, if I just cut out like 50% of the sugar I eat, I'll probably start losing weight.
If you stopped eating chocolate, I bet you would.
Yeah, almost definitely.
Like just that one.
Almost definitely, chocolate is the
it's a killer, isn't it?
But go on, you've had loads of success, and I actually want to hear about it because like it's a hard diet cutting out sugar. So
yeah, I mean it's hard. It's hard for someone like us. I think for the average Joe, it's like, oh, it's a couple of chocolate bars a week.
Yeah. No, I already have some self-discipline.
Yeah, I know, literally. So we're coming from a place of no self-discipline whatsoever to just trying to be a bit of a grown-up. And we always say this, just trying to be an adult. But it's going well. But essentially, I'm not snacking.
Yeah.
I'm not snacking at all. So
you look different.
Yeah, I've lost weight. I've lost some weight. So, and it is, jokes aside and taking the mick and stuff, it is nice when people say it. Yeah. And they're like, you, because again, numbers on the scale, it doesn't actually matter. I don't actually care that much. The number one thing is genuinely how I feel. And losing weight makes you feel better because you are just a bit more mobile. And also in your clothes, you feel a bit less conscious. I've realized, because I never thought I was that conscious. But now putting the same clothes on and not like noticing my belly and stuff as much, it just looks like how a t-shirt should fit.
Yeah.
Only then did I realize that, oh yeah, that was in my mind, definitely. Like every day when I got dressed, I was like, God, and like when you put on a shirt, like you said, you do the buttons up and you're like, okay, this shirt never used to feel like this, where it's getting tighter. It does just feel better to have lost a bit of weight, and that's the side goal of this thing, and it's working. But also, I must say, I don't feel remotely as tired. Remotely, like not even close to it. And we've always said this before.
That's the biggest.
We've been absolutely knackered, like during school and stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, okay, I need to get some more sleep. And then maybe we'll get some more sleep and we'll still feel knackered the next day. And the reason is you don't feel tired because you're not getting enough sleep. You feel tired because your body's an absolute mess. Like honestly, it's like
that
it's
4-pack of Ripples I ate before bed and then got a good night's sleep did not help the situation.
Yeah, literally. So you're waking up, your body's done in. It's trying to like function off a diet which is not remotely suitable. So all I'm doing is I'm having breakfast, dinner, I'm not going to do this again, breakfast, lunch and dinner. It's because I'm northern and I want to say breakfast, dinner,
Last
tea.
Breakfast, dinner,
breakfast,
dinner
tea.
said, dinner said, no, last
said
episode,
lunch.
Dylan said, I just have breakfast, dinner, lunch every day. And I said, what, in that order?
Yeah, funny.
Good joke.
But yeah, and then no crisps, no chocolate, no fizzy drinks.
Yeah,
they're the trifecta. And no fast food. No fast food.
The trifecta.
Trifecta. But and no
good.
like no fast food, but like Burger King, like McDonald's, that kind of thing. The only thing we have had is like a Nando's.
Yeah.
And
we
like
Nando's,
from this oven, the wood fire oven pizza place and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So not
But
necessarily.
it's working though, so it's fine. You can have
You've got to, because I tell you what, it feels more sustainable than last time.
Yeah.
I walked in and I saw them chocolates, and a part of me was like, I would eat 2 of them right now.
Yeah.
But I don't sit wanting it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And the benefits of the whole diet is outweighing my desire to go and eat it.
Yeah.
So it does feel good now though, and I'm going to start doing some more exercise now. Now I've added in a bit of that, and I've got to a bit like knocked a bit off.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the numbers are cool, but I want to feel better, so I just want to get a bit stronger.
For anyone not watching, by the way, Dylan has been doing this episode so far with his top off. He's really, really proud to present what he's done. It's a bit awkward.
Here's the thing. I've gone from morbid obesity to obese, and I'm like, yeah, this is how you do it, guys.
on the app. Oh, that's funny.
It's all BMI is all crazy anyway, because I'm like a short, stocky.
I'll tell you what, though,
anyway.
the obesity. There's like it's very easy to get into that bracket, isn't it? Like the actual technical side of it. I've been on like that app. I've been obese for years.
Yeah, I've got news for you. It's not
the app in real life, Dylan.
It's not the app, mate. But
it's lower threshold than you think it is.
I know it is, and I know a lot of people will be listening who feel the same way of like, okay, I know I need to do something, but I'm working so hard constantly at school. It's easy for me to get a ready meal and some chocolate and walk into the staff room. We've done it for years. Like this is not remotely like a judgy thing.
And if you're listening to this anytime from sort of March 2024 onwards,
put it back on.
Then this we need to listen to this advice again because we'll have given up by then. I tell you what, I have found this week particularly hard though, purely because, and I know you know this as well because we've both been there. I had a rank cold last week. And when you feel ill, it's just everything is just so much effort, and I think I've really dropped off. Because I was actually a bit more conscious before this week of like what I was eating in the day.
That
I
makes sense.
I was losing weight, and then I've kind of put a pound back on.
I forgot you were ill. That does actually explain.
And it's a bit late. It's just pure like
it's not laziness.
Feeling sorry for yourself.
But also your body's trying to fight off stuff, and it needs more calories, I assume. And stuff. I'm not a scientist.
Hence the nasally voice. If I sound
I'm just guessing.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
this
just
week.
a quick recap of our week. So some funny stuff happened.
Yeah, because we're going to get into a really chunky bit of this episode now.
Juicy episode.
So let's crack on.
So I want to start with a story, and it is kind of between me and Dylan. This is for you guys because it was a funny thing that happened this week.
Yeah.
So I was on the playground on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And a bunch of your kids, your maths class. So Dylan's in year 4, I'm in year 6 for context. And Dylan's maths class, a couple of these girls come up to me and was like really riled up. And they were like, we're going to beat you. And I don't know what you're talking about. yeah, we're going to beat you. And Dylan explained that he'd set up a Times Tables Rock Stars competition between his class and my class.
A year 4 set and a year 6 best mathematicians in the school set.
Yeah.
Just for context.
Exactly. Top set year 6. So I was like, all right, okay. And Dylan was like, yeah, I've only set it for 3 days so that they can smash you.
Okay. We're going to get the iPads in.
I didn't, I obviously playing behind the scenes. I'm playing along with this, but to the kids, I'll be like, no, I'm going to go tell all my year 6s right now. They're going to go home, and I'm not letting year 4s beat me. If year 4s beat us, and I think I said something like, Mr. Price can take over. Or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, but if I win, if my year 6s win, I'm coming into your classroom next week. I'm kicking Mr. Price out. I'll be taking the class from now on. That's all I said. That is all I said. And the conversation ended there. I didn't hear anything more of it. These girls ran off like, I'm going to tell Mr. Price.
Do you want to know what happened after that then?
Yes.
So they came into my classroom, like, honestly, could barely breathe. They were so like, and they said something about right. Listen. If we win, we get to chase Mr. Stevens, and he's going to kick you out the window. If you win, he's going to kick you out the window and take over and teach us maths for the whole time. So completely made that up already.
Kicking out the window.
Yeah, literally just made that out of nowhere. Yeah. Went out. It was PPA that afternoon. I came back from PPA, and the teacher who teaches PSHE said the kids have written a note for you or something. This whole note of this plan of how they're going to chase you around the playground. Right, and they said in maths on Wednesday morning, they found out they'd won.
Yeah,
because initially it was Monday to Monday, and my class we had iPads out in the morning and it's correct answers. So my class got loads ahead, and then your class just did their homework, which is a minimal amount, and they overtook us. So I was like, okay, they're just gonna win because they're quicker, just even if a few of them do it.
Yeah.
So I changed the date back to Wednesday, and then we got the iPads out again on Tuesday. Anyway, they won, and they were unbelievably excited. And I was like, all right, I need to really think of something for you guys, a nice little treat because you beat the year 6s, just a trick to make them do loads of times tables.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, there's a letter on the shelf. And I was like, what? And they'd left that letter on the shelf, so I got it. And then they're like, can we come to the front and explain what's going to happen? And I was like, yeah, all right. So it's the same 2 girls came to the front in maths, and they were just so excited, and the kids in the class were so excited as well. And they were there going, right, so basically what we get to do is Mr. Stevens, we're going to chase it's going to be Mr. Price and Miss Gillett, who's my teaching assistant on some days in school. They're going to be behind Mr. Stevens, and they're going to be chasing Mr. Stevens. Then it's us 2 behind them that we're going to be chasing Mr. Stevens, and then everyone else is behind us, and we're going to chase Mr. Stevens all around the playground, and that's because he lost. So and basically that was yesterday, the last day. They think that's happening next week.
Yeah, I mean it's got to happen now, isn't it?
And when this is released, it's going to be happening tomorrow.
Yeah, it's got to happen.
And I said, I think Mr. Stevens is on duty on Tuesday, and I've just got this vision now because if 20 kids are chasing you around the playground, everyone will join in.
Yeah.
The whole of the school.
I had a kid years ago that started in my class. It was a really funny boy. Yeah. And he started this chant about me. I can't remember what it was, but it was quite funny.
Baldy over there?
Yeah, something like that, probably. And it was about Mr. Stevens for president or something like that, I think it was. And he managed, I'm not joking, he got every single child on the playground to follow him in like a big conga line chanting this thing.
Was that at our school now?
Yeah.
I think I remember.
Yeah, either a year or 2 years ago.
Because I'm looking at it and going, what is going on? There's hundreds of kids.
2 years ago. Yeah. And I was like, it only lasted for 20 seconds, but for the fact that he managed to get hundreds of children for a minute just to do this thing, I was like,
kid's gonna go someplace.
So Tuesday, bring on Tuesday. I'll be chased around.
I just love it. I feel like we're getting right back into a groove of winding kids up in terms of getting them riled up about you, because my class are now becoming a bit obsessed with you.
But it's great because what did they make them do? their times tables.
Yeah, completely. Exactly. Yeah,
Like,
that was
cool.
the whole thing. I was like,
Yeah.
they're going to love the fact they've managed to beat some year sixes. They won't realise it's because we did it in class.
Yeah.
They won't know that.
Well,
they didn't care.
speaking of you winding up kids, I did have a bunch of girls in my class come up to me the other day, and I know this was to do with you, and they were just staring at my forehead. I was like, what?
So
I wonder
anyone
who
who's
told-
watched the US Office, right? One of the things Jim does to Dwight, because Jim's always pranking Dwight.
Yeah.
One of the simple pranks Jim does to Dwight is just literally get everyone to look at his forehead instead of his eyes when he's talking.
Yeah.
So I said to them, get as many people as you can to do it. I think they just ran off, got excited and did it, just them two. Get as many people as you can to do it and don't pretend nothing's happening. Have conversation with him, but stare at his forehead and don't get eye contact at
They all
all.
came into my English lesson just staring at my forehead. And I was like, what's going on?
I love the idea that something like that happens and straight away you're like, I know, Stella.
Yeah, of course
That
it
was-
did.
that's
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, after about 20 seconds, one was like, Mr. Price specifically told us to stare at your forehead. I was like, okay, yeah, ruined the joke, but fair enough.
It's like only works if you don't tell him. It's gonna make you go crazy. But yeah, I also had the other day on this note of the thing between us two. We were doing an RE lesson, and it was on this passage from the Bible where Jesus talks about making the fisherman fisher of men, and the whole point was. It's about Jesus like recruiting disciples and people to spread the word.
Yeah, I remember that lesson.
and they go and fish for men in terms of go and get them to join Christianity.
Catfishing.
Yeah, catfishing, exactly. Yeah, dress it all up, and it's nothing like they said it was going to be. But like, and the idea was that we would write at the end a job advert, as if we were Jesus trying to find fisher of men. And the whole point was, what are the characteristics that you would want from a disciple? So like kindness, loving, popular. They
all
come
the
up
Christian
with
values and
all
stuff.
the Christian values basically, and persuasive was a big one as well, because we're like trying to convince people to do
Yeah,
it.
of course.
And then we talked about like being a salesman and how it was modern day. They'd be good people to get in because they convince people.
So I imagine they thought really hard then about sort of the kind of people they probably did.
Definitely.
They label some people.
Yeah.
Like this kind of person. This is all the qualities.
Exactly. They were really, really focused. Their writing was actually really quite good. You know, they had lots of ideas on the board, all the things we just said, love, kindness. And at the top of the sheet for the job advert was a picture of the ideal candidate. Of
course.
So once they'd finished writing, they could draw a picture of the ideal candidate and label it.
And everyone took it seriously.
Everyone took it really seriously. And so I was marking some RE and opened a book. And it was just a picture of me and you. Nothing to do with Fisher of Men. Quite rotund people, I must say. My beard and hair, you completely round circle at the top.
Yeah.
And it was labelled Mr. Bryce, Mr. Stevens, an arrow to me saying good, and an arrow to you saying bad.
Nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with the lesson
Brilliant.
whatsoever. Underneath, he's like, yeah, Fisher of Men needs to be, have real kindness, be persuasive. Okay, can we see a picture of that? No, but you have got a good and bad picture.
And there, everybody, is the downside of hyping the kids up too much,
Yeah, I
because
know.
then they just ruin their other lessons.
Literally.
They just got too obsessed with it.
Literally. So this is a fine line. I'm not pretending we have the line, but I'd much rather be like we are.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be like
kids
we are.
enjoy.
The kids
Like we've
love
always
it.
said, kids. My number one priority is kids enjoy school. They go home happy, go home with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
The learning will come.
And maybe the second priority would be that teachers go home with a smile on their face because the Workload Reduction Taskforce
What
manages
a fantastic
to introduce some new. Oh, is there been a
segue.
early release of the Teacher Workload Reduction Taskforce?
I don't know, Dylan. Should we play the jingle and find out?
All right. So anyone who doesn't know, recently, and I'm talking like last week when this is released, the government have responded to something they've set up. And what they'd set up was, it was a DFE's Workload Reduction Task Force. And this all came about from the strikes. It was the idea of, okay, listen, a big part of the reason why teachers are striking is because workload is crazier than ever. It's more than ever. And systematically, alongside that, simultaneously rather, pay was stagnating. So you may have heard a lot in the media, especially if you're not a teacher, about the whole pay thing.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that drove forward because inflation was high. We could be kind of casted as selfish to the country because we're asking for so much money at a time when inflation is tough and everyone's feeling the pinch. That was one half of it, and for many teachers, less than a half of it. And I know a lot of teachers where they had to pick one thing that was more vital to them.
The pay.
It was, the pay was important, but it was like, okay, listen, if we're in a situation where we can't afford to pay teachers at inflation, then we need to do something to reduce the amount of work that they're doing.
Yeah, to make the job less.
So,
horrible.
one thing had to give.
Yeah.
And part of that was the government signed up to kind of set up this task force to reduce workload. There's been ongoing for years and years, these ideas being popped up to the government. And it's kind of separate to the government, and then the government can respond to them and be like, okay, yes or no, yes or no. And this week we had the first recommendations from that task force. And it was big news because the government have already replied to a couple of them and said yes or no. And there's been a general feeling of, okay, this is how we're going to move forward. We'll talk at the end about what will happen next because it's not done. But I thought this would be a fantastic episode for anyone who is in teaching or is wondering what the teachers do. Why are they striking? Why is this such a nuisance?
Yeah.
Is it not 9 till 3?
What is the problem with work?
What is the problem? Yeah. Why? The fact there's a task force been set up does kind of suggest there is a big problem, and just look at the retention.
Particularly if the government, this government who don't budge on anything.
Yeah.
If they've actually agreed to do this, it's kind of like, okay, probably should take this seriously then.
Yeah, and the great jail free card for the government is they can reject the suggestions.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. They've already done some of that, haven't they?
The first one, and I thought this was a fantastic idea, and I'm not afraid to say when things are good and when the government make a good decision. I think that's really important. We've got to say when it's a good thing. Is it an election year? Yes. Well, anyway, could they have separate reasons for doing it now? I don't know. But anyway. One really, really good thing, and it's rife across the whole system since we started, really, was the introduction of performance-related pay. Because the idea of performance-related pay is you'd set up some targets with your SLT or whoever's your mentor in school over the year, and it'll be to do with progress for the children, usually in maths or English, all linked to the school's performance plan on what they're working on as a school. And that all makes sense. It's good to have targets, especially we've been told as well previously that these targets are stretch targets. They're targets where they're really kind of aspirational. It would be really amazing if you managed to move all of these children up to that level. It's more than what's expected from you as a baseline. The problem is though, when the government changed all this, I think it was like in 2014, when Gove was the education secretary, they linked pay rises and moving up the ladder not just to experience anymore, but to whether you met these performance targets.
Yeah.
And a big thing schools could do then was set ridiculous targets. You're never going to meet them. You don't meet them because it's not reasonable to. And then your pay isn't bumped up to the ladder. I'm not talking about a pay rise, percentage pay rise for inflation. We're talking about the experience ladder where you go up to the first rung, second rung as years goes on.
Yep.
So they're saying that it works poorly in practice. The government, the body who the government have paid to go off and do all this research have said this does not work in practice. It doesn't actually make sure that teachers get there or not. It's not enough of a carrot for teachers to be able to achieve those goals because the goals are unreasonable. It doesn't matter what they've got in front of them.
Yep.
It just adds stress. It just means that some teachers don't get a pay rise at the end of the year.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on scrapping that?
A couple of things. So it adds, like you said, it does just add another layer where that just makes this job ridiculously different depending on what school you work in. For some reason. It's like, this is a public sector job. You all did the same training. You're on the same pay scale. In that school, though, they're going to set a crazy target for you. They're not going to give you a pay rise. Go over there and they will. It's like, I'm the same person.
Yeah.
So that's just stupid. I hate that. So I do agree with it's not the best system if we're supposed to have this lovely fair public sector job where everyone's paid the same.
So if you're, someone who's not in teaching and you look at this, I can imagine people look at this and go, I've got performance related pay. I've got sales targets I need to meet to get commission and things like that. Yeah. Maybe I'm an estate agent. I'm on a really low base salary. And unless we meet our targets in branch, then I don't get paid as much. And that's because you're making money for the business. What do you think is different about a teacher? Why should teachers not have it? Why do we not need it?
Annoyingly, I was about to ask you the same question. So that's my counter thought all the time is anyone in the private sector right now is thinking performance related pay is pretty standard stuff.
Sure.
So I understand that the sympathies might not be there when we're saying to scrap it. So I don't necessarily think we should just scrap it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, do people perform differently? Will people work harder? Will people be trying to, improve themselves at a different rate? And should there be any kind of remuneration for it? Maybe.
But I don't think that's true. And we've worked in schools long enough to realise this, that the amount of work and hours you can put into a cohort doesn't always necessarily translate to how much progress they're going to make. Yeah. It's not like sales where the more telephones you pick up and the more calls you make, the more sales you make, the more hours you put in, the more sales you'll complete. Therefore, you're gonna it's kind of linked to the amount of effort you put in. With this, really, if I sit and replan the entire English curriculum, maybe one or two cuspy children might get through that didn't before because they relate more to the text and they're more engaged. Your teaching style isn't going to change because of performance-related pay. Yeah. I'm not going to suddenly become that teacher who now manages to form an amazing bond with this child who was so reluctant before, but now that I've got performance-related pay, wow, I've made a real difference to that child. It's not as linear, I don't think. And what's really interesting from this is the research says from this task force that it doesn't work in practice. It's this idea, and I think sometimes in culture we think, well, that's what we always do. That's what everyone else does. Well, why don't we just carry? Well, if the research is saying no, if the research says working from home for a private company doesn't impact whatsoever with the output of the company and it makes people happier, we shouldn't just turn around and say, oh, but we've always been in the office, so come back into the office, please. You need to react to research. And if it's saying it doesn't work and it's only adding stress to the job, there's already 74 other things that stress us out enough. It's one less thing to worry about.
So do you think it should go back to, I don't know if it was like this before, but just guaranteed every year you should go up a point?
Yeah, I do. On the main pay scale.
Yeah.
I don't mind that at all, because the main pay scale, you've got to remember, we're talking like $2,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking unbelievably high amounts of money. And naturally, if you've been a teacher for 1 or 2 years, it doesn't mean you're worse than a teacher that's been there for 4 or 5 years necessarily. But on the whole, in general, you do improve.
Yeah, you're probably going to be better than your 2-year previous self.
Because you've taught this, you've done different year groups now. You're more of an asset to the school in terms of your experience.
Confidence.
Yeah, and I look at it personally, this is how I look at the pay scale for teachers. I look at the pay scale as teachers as top of the main pay scale, which is about 38 grand now, I think 40 grand, something like that. I look at that as the salary for being a teacher. Yeah. So that is the salary for being a teacher. We start off too low. And we're working our way up to the teacher salary. I don't see it as the teacher salary is 30 grand, prove yourself, be better to get more. I see yourself as 40 grand, work for 5 years, gain your experience, got the main pay scale, and then that's the level of a teacher.
That's a good way of thinking about it.
That's how I look at it, and that's why I think going up, you're just earning your stripes. I still don't necessarily agree with it. I absolutely despise the fact that an ECT gets paid, I think it's roughly 12 grand or 13 grand less than someone who's been doing it for 4 or 5 years, when, in my opinion, they're doing the same job. That's mad to me. I've never really liked the whole experience automatically means money, which is what I'm saying we should go back to. But I equally don't think that performance-related pay, when your SLT are setting different targets to other schools that could be harsher or better, I don't think either system is ideal. I just think if you're teaching kids, you should just get paid to teach the kids. If you've done it for 3 years or 5 years, should you get 4 grand more?
It's hard because I think there's more like psychology behind it. I think.
Do you think it retains people more?
Yeah, I think there's got to be an element of retention.
But enough people are leaving.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but if there wasn't a,
do you think more people would leave?
I'm just imagining a scenario, right, where there was no pay scale at all. It was just everyone comes in at this is what we pay teachers. Everyone gets paid 40 grand.
Sure.
I just feel like people like me and you, who, especially earlier on in our careers, who were like super driven, like aspiration wise, I want to earn more, I want to be high, I want to be more important in the school, whatever. Yeah. I think we would have been like,
but you're not okay.
Day one, I'll never even get a pay. Like, why should I improve? Why should I get better in any aspect? There's nothing to reward me.
That's interesting because I thought the same thing, but just five years down the line.
Yeah,
I looked at it and I thought, okay, I already know what I'll be on when I'm 28, and I didn't like that.
Exactly. So imagine if it was from day one.
Yeah, sure. But I agree. But I also think all that might be replaced with then is I think paying teachers adequately for doing extra work. For example, if you're just a class teacher, 40 grand, your class teacher, you who's been doing it for 2 years and you who's been doing it for 10 years, you're still both class teachers. You're still both sharing planning equally. Like you're just saying you're better. So you get 10 grand more. Whereas maybe if it's all at the same, I don't know, same remuneration, we might recruit more people because it's higher. And then in the job, you would then, my point was we had to reform everything. It doesn't work currently because if you're a class teacher and you get X amount of money, cool. But then if you lead geography, you get a bonus.
Yeah, actually get paid more.
If you lead maths, you get a bonus. Then the aspiration comes in leading something or taking on this kind of role within the school to make the school better. That's remunerated.
Yeah, it has to be monetary value. So I was gonna say like a lot of private companies have bonuses, right?
Sure.
There'll be bonuses for people's performance as well as their pay rises or whatever.
Yeah.
So if we've got this scenario where no one's being paid anymore, I think within 1 year, the entire nation would go to the point where we feel right now, where we feel stagnated by pay not going up with strikes and stuff. And do you know what that makes me feel? And I know a lot of people, it's like, cool, I won't do any more work then.
Yeah.
It's almost that spiteful thing of like, okay, if you think I'm not worth any more money the next year when I'm more experienced, then I won't do anything else. I will purposely do nothing more.
Yeah.
Is almost how I want people to be like that because that's the point of the strikes. So I think if I was on the same pay without any kind of new system, right? Everyone's just like, no, everyone just gets paid 40 grand now. Then I think you'd see a lot of people just not really doing it much extra.
Sure.
You wouldn't get those people going above and beyond like they are now because I think the current system does kind of trick people into thinking, oh, if I'm going up from 26 to 28 grand, I will do that club.
Sure.
Okay, I'll prove myself I'm worth that extra.
You're absolutely right.
It does trick people into doing that.
Because currently the base level for a teacher is 27, 28 grand.
30
right? 30 grand. It's moving to that. I don't know if it has already.
Oh, I don't know.
But it's going to be 30 or at least it is, So let's say it's 30 grand. That now is the base level for a teacher, and then you justify the leaps by doing extra work.
Exactly.
So that's how they're getting more work out of us.
Yeah.
So I think the base level for a teacher should be M6, which is the top of the main pay scale. That's just what I believe, and because you're still doing the same job.
Yeah.
But then anything extra, if you pick up extra things, or if you get better, maybe that's what upper pay range would be for. Use the upper pay range for that in that case, because at the minute upper pay range. Again, for anyone who doesn't know, there's a main pay scale for schools that goes. When we started, it went from like 24 up to like 35. Right now, it's moved. I think it goes up to about. It's like 40, 30 to 40.
42 maybe.
Maybe.
Like that.
And the first level of upper pay range is now 43. So it's a separate scale, right? And a lot of schools still now cling on to the fact that if you move to the upper pay range, you have to be leading a subject. You have to be doing loads extra to really justify moving from just the range of a classroom teacher to doing extra stuff. My point would be classroom teachers should be paid a base amount, which is good for that job. And then anything extra, you either use TLRs. If you're leading just maths, for example, you get an extra amount of money for doing that. Or if you then do more for the school in general, perhaps you are, overseeing upper key stage 2, or you're a year group leader or something like that, justify it through putting them through to the next stage. And you have this kind of 2-tier system then of, okay, if you're an ECT or just a classroom teacher who's been doing it for 8 years, you, in my opinion, are doing the same job. And I don't think anyone could actually really begrudge, apart from experience, the fact that you're getting paid the same.
I reckon people would,
Yeah, but they would. They would because of the traditional thing, though.
Yeah.
If you've got that experience, okay, so what are you bringing more than the other person? Are you their mentor?
Well, no, it might just be that you're just getting better results. You're more confident. You know what you're doing. You don't require as much support from SLT.
So in that case, if you're getting more results, you could justify going to the upper pay range.
Yeah.
So I don't mind having some form of performance-related pay when it's off the main pay scale. But if it's just the idea of just doing that job, I don't know. I think there's a huge discrepancy there, and I don't think it's a bad thing that the starting salary's gone up.
No, not at all.
I don't think it's bad that we're basically squashing that main pay scale personally. It's annoying for us because we've gone through the main pay scale and we started on 22 grand.
Lowest,
we started on really low. But if you just let go of that for a second, objectively, it's better that they're putting up the starting salary, I think.
I think as long as, in our made up system here, as long as there is...
It has to be widespread change.
There has to be a bonus system. There just has to be.
Yeah.
There has to be. I just don't think...
Yeah,
I think if you've had 1 year, right, where you've got 2 teachers on the same pay, one of them does the bare minimum for the job. Yeah. Okay, fine, they're doing the job, right? And the other one just goes above and beyond all the time. They run all these extra clubs. They take their kids on trips, and they do these things that just require loads of extra planning. And then at the end of the year, they go to their head teacher and what am I on next year? Because obviously I've done tons more work than him.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
just
same pay again.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so if there is a system where it's like, okay, you can go up to the upper pay scale actually, because I tell you what, you are doing all these extra things. They're not, that's their choice. They're fine. You stay there. You're doing all these extra things. But then already, to me, it's just like, this whole thing is just justifying the pay scale.
That already exists though.
Yeah.
That already exists now.
I know. And then...
Because ECTs were like, well, what's the point? I'm getting paid 12 grand less. I thought when we started as ECTs, right, we were getting paid less than what we are now, 3 days a week at the top of the scale.
I know.
And we were getting paid less then, never mind inflation and pay rises and stuff. We were getting paid less then than someone who was part-time at the top of the pay scale.
Yeah.
That rinsed me. I was like, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
So we can't pretend that it's working now.
No, that's true. But there used to be a bit more of a bonus system though, didn't there? There used to be retention, like schools used to have a lot more power to basically, just pay their teachers like a bonus at the end of the year to retain them. If they're really good teachers, they're going to go...
It's like golden handcuffs thing, wasn't it? It's like you can't move for 3 years, but here's 6 grand.
Yeah, then they used to have that power and they did it all the time. And they just don't... I think the system still exists. They're just schools don't have the budget anymore.
There's no money.
So there is no retention bonuses. But overall, I think scrap the performance related pay because it does just get abused. I don't actually think it works very well. I think we need to be very careful about what comes in its place. There has to be, in the same way we talk about Ofsted later, there has to be something, I guess, that makes sure people are doing their job properly. But I don't think we should link it to
but I just,
the standard pay scale.
Crying out for more trust, aren't we? When you join an estate agency, or if you join an insurance broker, or if you join anything that's kind of in the high street and there's this kind of performance related pay thing and you're earning your stripes and it helps you to train more and get better, it's an incentive to improve, right? That's very different to us who've done years of training and are professionals and have done stuff in school. There has to be a level of trust here.
Yeah.
It's not the same as some sales job that a 16-year-old can walk into on the high street. We don't need to have the same kind of pay performance level. We are already qualified, have passed strenuous tests. We are professional teachers. I think that has to be reflected in how we're paid. We don't then have to justify it every year. Like, yes, we have to have something in place, but I think at the minute it's not working. But luckily, the government, they've reacted to a couple of these things already. They've said they're going to urgently, rapidly review this and try and replace PRP, performance-related pay, by next September, by next year.
A less bureaucratic way to manage performance fairly and transparently.
And that's only a good thing. But, watch this space. We'll see. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Next thing on the list. This, again, all of these are really interesting to me. This is something you're really passionate about. So I'm going to introduce it. I want you to crack on with it.
Sure.
It's the idea that they've said, okay, schools and trusts, because this is something we'll come on to later. Schools are run by local councils. Trusts are their own kind of business. Lots of schools are moving to trusts. If you don't quite understand the difference, we'll go into that later. But just for now, know that trusts have more autonomy. Schools are more answerable to local authority.
The local council,
yeah. So schools and trusts should consider assigning a senior leader with dedicated, so this is that's it. Their responsibility is simply to improve well-being and reduce workload. Now, we see this in schools at the minute. This does happen sometimes, but it might often be a teacher, a teaching assistant, a side thing to tick off for their, that's my appraisal target is for well-being. There might be a questionnaire every now and then. This is very different. Senior leader, dedicated to well-being and reducing workload. Why is that so important?
Right, someone in the SLT doing this is so important, and already even like the should consider, I'm like, no, that needs to not be a should consider. It should be as important as, does your school need a deputy head teacher? Yes. Okay, you also need this person. So important. I think it's fair to say that none of this will happen. This change will never ever happen. It'll become another one of the 1,000 gimmicks that we have in teaching, because so much of education world is just a gimmick, just gimmick after gimmick after gimmick after promise after broken whatever. I don't think any of this will happen if we don't have someone who is wholly accountable for it, someone high up that is involved in leading the school. Absolutely, like their job is on the line for doing this. Do you know what I mean? It's part of their job. It'd be like us walking into school and be like, nah, I'm not teaching today. That's how serious it'd be taken if they said, no, we're not going to do well-being. So no, your school doesn't function without this. It's broken now. You need this person. So yes, very, very passionate about this, purely because I just think without the accountability, it will not happen.
The big word for me in there is dedicated, because what I can see happening a lot now, maybe it's already happening, people have had experience of this. Someone already in SLT who has a kind of responsibility already, let's say it's SEN provision, let's say it's teaching and learning across the school, like this really big thing, will also tag on the end, I'm also a wellbeing manager. And there is immediately a detriment, like there is immediately kind of a crossroads there of they're going to clash, because objectively, if you are leading teaching and learning in the school and you're leading SEN provision, by default, every year for SEN is getting more and more children who need special provisions. That's true. And every year for teaching and learning, it feels like there's something else that's going to happen that we're going to have to do.
Standards are higher,
because
the bar's
of Ofsted
higher.
Frameworks, the bar's higher. We've got to get up the league tables. Immediately, your gut there on how to fix that will be to increase workload for your staff, because they've got to deliver different things. They've got to plan more stuff. They've got to write more IEPs. They've got to, apply for some funding for these children in their class. They've got to put extra time in to help them. Your initial thought there is, okay, more work for those guys. But your wellbeing manager, just offer them a yoga class at the end of the term.
Yeah, it will be. That's what it will
be. So dedicated is really important to me, because the responsibility should be for a wellbeing manager is to have an ear on the ground, and you are representing your staff at that point. You are representing the school. It could even be that a teacher joins SLT, but they're still just a teacher, but they join SLT meetings. They're there when decisions are made. The wellbeing manager, whose sole job is to be wellbeing manager, has to be there to say, okay, well, what's the payoff? For example, I know in our school last year, we did this big rollout of a new curriculum in the afternoon, which is fantastic. It's a really good curriculum, but it was a lot of work for our staff. It was a lot of work. We're maths leads. There's no wellbeing manager in our school, but as maths lead, it would have been very easy for us to walk in and say, okay, cool. By the way, we are completely revamping how we do times tables across the entire school. Also, the planning, it's okay, but I think for these 3 topics, we need to take this approach.
We're going to go to a new scheme.
We're going to go to a new scheme. Yeah. We absolutely could have walked in and said that, and we have the backing of our SLT, which is really nice to be in that position where we know that if we think something's good, SLT will have our back. But we also had to consciously say to ourselves, no, There may be things that are objectively better for maths if everyone does them right now. But during this time where, including us as class teachers, we're planning more and more for an afternoon curriculum, we have to balance it out.
Yeah.
And the idea of someone being dedicated in SLT, that would already be on the table before it got to us.
Yeah.
It would be a linchpin where they've got all their fingers and all the pies. They know the English team are planning revamping this curriculum. They know the history lead is over there thinking, we need to add in some extra tasks at the end of each unit. They're going to have all of that in their mind thinking, okay, well, listen, English leads, if we're going to do this, I need to go and talk to these other guys because we can't introduce that yet. It's going to be a timetable thing. It has to be proactive because we've seen what schools like. You can go for a lull in a school. It's very rare, but you can go for a lull where everything's kind of chugging along. It's like, okay, well, we've just changed that. Well. It's okay at the minute. Suddenly, 3 different subject leads will get really passionate about something, which is great from their point of view. And they think, right, okay, look, everything's chugging along. It's quite quiet. Let's do this now. Let's do that. All of a sudden, within a term, you've got 4 curriculums to change.
Yeah,
you've got 4 things to do. So I think that's really important. It was interesting to me. The government replied to quite a few of these things. It didn't reply to this. They've got a history, haven't they, of kind of not liking this idea.
Do you know what my genuine thoughts are, right? I think it's a bit of a unicorn role. I reckon... I have to see it to believe it, right? Because I'm thinking about this scenario where we go from what we are now to having dedicated well-being leaders in schools, right? How do we get there? Right, they've got to employ someone. What are the chances that a school that maybe is a bit more toxic actually go, no, we're going to do the right thing this time. We're going to employ someone that really will challenge us. What's the chances they do that? Or they employ someone that they know will they can just puppet master again. Yeah. Like, I think it's going to be a really, 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 really hard thing to actually get schools that really need this to go from having horrible workload and terribly toxic schools to employing one person who has got the confidence to come in and challenge everything. Balls, say balls. The balls to come in. They've got the confidence to challenge it and actually make a difference, because I think it's going to be really hard for schools to do that.
And you're right, because it'll be easy to do in schools where already you can have that dialogue.
Yeah, it's like, I've got this teacher in year 6 who already does tons of work and is totally on. I'm a head teacher now, now. Thinking, okay, I'm going to see if she'll be the well-being and workload manager, because I tell you what, she'll just do whatever I say. She's trying to work up her career. So you do that, okay? We've ticked the boxes. We've got it now. Oh, look how good we are, and actually they're not doing anything. Yeah. I think that could happen. Yeah. So we have to be really, really careful. Yeah. However, it does lead me on to the next point here as well, because when I read this, my first thought was, okay, someone needs to keep their head teacher in check then.
Sure, because by proxy, if you're on SLT, your head teacher is still your boss.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the chances are you're going to be closer to them than anyone else in the school, and probably trying to impress them, trying to be on their side. Sure, because you're a team at that point. Yeah. Right? But the next point, I was like, this is good. Because the next point here is DfE may want to consider having a designated governor as well-being champion. Now, again, if you're not in schools, head teacher is at the top of the pile, really, and the only thing that keeps them accountable on kind of a local day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis is the governors, the governing body of the school, who are all volunteers. And I just think, if we've got a volunteer coming to the school, that's way more likely that you'll be able to find a good volunteer governor who is super passionate about well-being, without the head teacher being able to maybe have their, to fight that off, or, make a bit more of a decision.
And we've seen how sometimes head teachers get when they know governors are on the case.
Exactly, right? And some head teachers, they've got a good relationship with their governors, and maybe they've managed to find a way to have that kind of But actually, there's a good chance that you could get in a governor of a school who is like, no, I'm not, this is not good enough. The head teacher is absolutely just employing people that will do what they say and not doing the job properly. So no. So having a governor above the head and having an SLT member below the head teacher in terms of job hierarchy, both dedicated to well-being, I think it could work.
Okay, so devil's advocate here. My favourite role to play. My friends, they used to say when we were at uni and stuff, because I just like debating and arguing, they'd call it Dylan's advocate. Just replace the devil.
You still do that now.
Yeah, Dylan's advocate. Okay, you're a head teacher in a school that is struggling. You've got staff who, take shortcuts because they're fed up. I've been there before. I know nothing against the staff for doing so. You've got Ofsted due. Okay. This has just been released. You need to put a wellbeing manager below and above you in the governors and in the SLT. Yep. You really want to implement change to improve the outcomes for your school, but they are blocking you at every road, because inevitably change means work. What on earth is the solution there? Do you let the school stagnate?
I think that's when a good head teacher puts together a proper report.
Sure.
A proper report, because I think they've got to have. They still.
In what way? Report to who?
As in to report to the governors. Yeah. Maybe with this wellbeing person in line saying, right, appreciate these are the concerns you've raised. this is our future of our school, right? And actually put together, say, here are our numbers. If we change all of this at once, then it might have this effect. I understand we can't. If we don't change anything, this is where our standards are going right now as a school. And I think a good head teacher has that persuasion ability, has that ability to look at, to plan for the future, look at the school action plan and saying, no one wants to do extra work, but if we don't at least put in A, B, and C, then this is what's going to happen to our school, and we're going to, our standards are going to keep declining if it's in one of those schools.
Because it's rare that it's 7 things going wrong at once.
Yeah, and it might just be that the plan is not that we're not going to do these things at all. I imagine a wellbeing manager's role is to be like, okay, can we not do the 7 things at once? Could we space them out?
Yeah, because
I think
we're going to do stuff,
ground.
aren't we?
Yeah, of course we are.
Yeah.
I think if any teachers take this away of like, yes, no more change, you need to drop that, because that's not how it works. And actually, that is actually a poor attitude, I think, to education. Like, of course, stuff has to change. It moves with the times. It moves with your cohorts.
Yeah, your cohorts
Your
change.
kids change every year, every year that goes by. So I think a head teacher's role is to go like, yeah, okay, this is our ideal world. I now thank you, wellbeing manager and governor. I appreciate that. Actually doing that, I probably would lose 7 of my staff going off long-term sick because it's too stressful. Here's our new plan. Do we all agree on it? Do we think this is manageable? We're going to do this thing first, and then next year we're going to do that thing, and the year after we'll review it, and hopefully we'll put in these other things. And I think that's what a good head teacher will do. They won't just go, okay, you're fine, have a paddy, fine, we'll watch the standards drop then. It's like, cool, don't be a head teacher.
I actually think collaboration is really important, and I think if these roles do happen, and those people, in the same way a rogue head teacher might right now go rogue and say, we're doing all of this right now. If the wellbeing people come in and say, we're doing nothing ever, that's equally poor for a school.
Exactly.
So I think having them in the first place, their role needs to be really defined. It needs to be collaborative. Yes, their first thought is wellbeing. The head teacher's first thought is progress.
Yeah.
Come together, meet in the middle and talk to your staff.
That's how it can
have
work.
That dialogue.
That's how it can work.
However, the government have always been very reluctant to kind of introduce anything like this, where they're very much like, no, we'll leave it to the schools, knowing full well that schools can eke as much out of teachers.
Well, because they think that standards, in that scenario, standards could drop a bit.
Well, look, okay. Do you agree that objectively they would?
I actually don't, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
And I was thinking this. I was thinking they probably would. But actually,
if you did less,
I think in all these scenarios, we always take out the fact that really stressed teachers don't perform as well.
Absolutely.
And it's like we never include that metric. It's like no. Well, yeah, they might get the work done, but I tell you what, when they're off sick and you've got a cover supply in there doing it for 6 months, that's not going to be as good as your teacher being in there. So I do think we have to take into account. It might not be as good objectively if the 7 things get done over 3 years instead of 1, because then we've had to wait 3 years for these things. But having really healthy, happy teachers in school probably will offset that in a positive way. I think so. But we can't measure that, so the government just they ignore it. So no, standards will be worse.
Yeah, because and I think you're absolutely right. It's something I'm coming more towards you on. I never disagreed with you, but you've always been very staunch that that's the absolute most important thing, comes before anything, is the well-being of teachers because of the domino effect. And I've always thought, but they need to have good teaching and good lessons right in front of them. Yeah. But I think it is a domino effect. And I think when, having been in the profession now for like 8-9 years, you see the effect.
I felt it. When I'm happy in my job, I do just do more. Genuinely. And I've seen it online as well. I remember I read it out ages ago. I saw something on Facebook of someone being like, I left my old school. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, I left my old school where I refused to do any clubs and things. I've gone to this new school and they treat me really nicely and I feel really happy. And now I'm doing clubs voluntarily. Yeah. And the whole point was like, because they're happy now. Oh, look at that. Standards improved.
Because do you know what? That hour they're doing a club, they've saved 2-3 hours of planning. Yeah. Because it's not anymore.
Well, they just feel valued. They just feel like, I'm happy. So I'll do this for the kids rather than I'm stressed. I need to go home. I need to get away from this place.
I've got to say, and it's not down to the school or anything. It's just down to like, I think being ground down after years and years.
Yeah, the system.
And like the government kind of disrespecting us, in my opinion, constantly about pay and stuff, where I do miss, I've said it before in the podcast, I miss doing things with the children because it's fun. And that's usually in lunchtime club. I used to just have kids in at lunchtime because they wanted to come in and do some colouring. And I'm like, yeah, of course you can. I'm only marking. You come in and sit down. Whereas I know for a fact now, I've said it a million times, they come in at lunch. I'm like, no, I've got to prep. I've got to do this. I've got to mark. And also, even if I don't, do you know what? I just want 5 minutes. Yeah. And I think it's all acceptable, but I miss being that person who is driven solely by the kids' outcomes, and I think that makes for a better teacher. I feel like that's been grounded out because of the system, and I want the system to change.
I do think that was our unicorn years, though, in terms of we have kids. We've got kids now.
Yeah.
Like our lives personally are very different as well. So I think that does also.
If I don't mark for half an hour at lunch, I go home half an hour later.
Yeah, and then you see Rory for half an hour less. It's like,
it's
it does suck. Like I'm definitely feeling that pinch. So obviously River's eight weeks now, coming up to 9 weeks. And every single day by 3:30, all I'm thinking of is I want to go home because I want to give her a cuddle.
Yeah.
I've been away from my little like child.
And she's so little.
I know. And
she's
I'm
not
like,
4. Even when they're 4, I'll think that. But they're so precious.
I got
now.
really sad last week, and I genuinely felt like actually upset because I had a cold.
Yeah.
And I just, obviously when in those first few days when you have a cold and you actually are contagious as anything, and I had a nasty cough and I just felt rubbish.
You missed swimming, didn't you?
Yeah, I missed it. You guys went swimming, I didn't come, and I just tried to stay away from River as well as much as I could in the house. I didn't kiss her, I didn't cuddle her.
Oh.
And it was like 4 days, and after about 4, I genuinely felt, I was like, God, like the 4 days in proportion of her life is quite a big chunk so far. And I was like, I've missed a big chunk of her 8 weeks so far, just for having 4 days.
She's changing quickly.
Yeah, and I was like, what if she forgets me? And I started going down these stupid avenues. Of course she won't. But I was like, the feeling sorry for myself. Like, what if she now doesn't? Now she's used to only seeing Lauren's face, and she doesn't trust me being around anymore. And I was like, oh God. Well, but being at work, I feel like that. I'm like, oh, she's not seen me for 10 hours.
My mum and stepdad went to a care home where my nan is.
Yeah.
And there was COVID in the care home. My nan didn't have COVID, but my parents didn't have COVID either. But they both were like, okay, we're not going to come just to be safe. And we were like, that's really, thank you, because you don't know of COVID.
Yeah.
It meant that they didn't see Rory for like, it was between 10 and 14 days.
Oh, they didn't come to you?
Didn't come to see it because they thought, we'll stay away. It was just after Christmas.
Right.
So we saw them at Christmas. They'd been to the care home. They found out there was COVID, and they were like, we need to keep going to the care home. We're the only people who go and see her very regularly.
Yeah.
So we need to keep going to the care home. But whilst there's COVID in the care home, we won't come and see you, even if we've got symptomless or anything like that. And they came to see him, and we worked out like they missed 12% of his life.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and when you like as a percentage, obviously I worked out a percentage.
At that point,
but at that point, 12% had gone past.
Yeah.
And they were like, he's changed so much because it was nearly 2 weeks. And it's so precious right now. And again, it's things like this. I want it to change as soon as possible. If we have more children, or just for anyone joining the job.
Yeah.
I just
want a healthier work-life balance. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's got to be healthy.
So next one is the only other thing the government has responded to. Okay. So I'm looking at the time. This might be a slightly longer one, but I'm really enjoying this. So, guys, strap in. The next one that the government responded to straight away is the idea that the schools might want to consider using INSET time to look at addressing workload. Now, that in itself sounds fine.
Do you want to explain INSET time first?
Yeah, so anyone doesn't know, INSET days are those, I think they used to be called Baker Days after someone in the government who invented them. Oh, really? They're just days where, as teachers, we've got to teach children for 190 days in a year, and we've got to be available for 195 days. And that 5 days difference is when, for example, if you've got kids and they don't go in on the first day after term, or they don't go in the last day of term, or maybe your school puts all 5 into 1 week and you get an extra week off on a half term somewhere in October or in the summer. So those days are used for training. So that time specifically is, okay, you're getting paid for this, teachers, but you're going to be trained. You're going to be trained up CPD. You're not with the kids all day. You're not with the kids. It's just you go in and you might have a morning of training and an afternoon of getting your classroom ready if it's at the start of the year or something like that. We have 5 of them a year. So the idea of using INSET time to address workload, great. But they went one step further, the commission, who were trying to reduce workload, and said you might also want to consider adding an additional INSET day. The point being that if they're a workload reduction task force, it's quite funny for them to come out and say, do this as well, but in the same amount of time. So I can imagine they were sat there going, okay, we can't really say this because it means less stuff gets done. Okay, also have another INSET day.
Yeah.
So it'd be 6 a year.
But it makes sense to have 6. It was 6 terms for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it's true.
Just have 6 anyway. Yeah. Just have
the only thing I suppose there would be like, does it mean one less day of learning for the children? Yeah. If that's true, there's a whole absence scandal. We'll do a podcast on that soon. So the government can't be seen to be taking hours of school. I get that. Or do you pay us an extra 0.5% for an extra 1 day out of 200 or something like that? How would it work to have an extra INSET day? Would it just be for free? And in that case, that's worse. So I can see why the government did come out and say, no, as in there won't be another day of INSET. They don't think that's the right course of action. I don't necessarily disagree with that again. I might think that we could fit in another one like you, but I don't think that's an awful government decision. Because at the end of the day, it's another day with the children.
Kids in school.
It's kids in school. After COVID and strikes, whether people in the media like to think it or not, I love my kids to be in school and I want them in front of me so I can teach them. That's like the number one thing that I could ask for. We're going to do a whole session on absence. It's crazy at the minute. But yeah, instead, basically the government say they're going to work with schools and try and make use of the current 5 days. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So, Hayden, going back to the initial point though, how helpful really is it for a workload reduction force to say, yeah, use INSETs to reduce workload?
What, when there's already stuff? INSETs are a weird one. I've been at schools where you have the classic one day at the start of each term, you go in, but the kids aren't in. And I've also worked in schools where you get it's all banded into an extra week off as INSETs, and you do it all in one go.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, if it's a week off, just so everyone knows, the people with the week off aren't necessarily just getting away with not doing 5 days of training.
No, there's always
that's split into, doing extra stuff in your time. It might be that you do some twilights during the terms. It might be that you do clubs or whatever it is. The hours are
rack up somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a bit skeptical anyway. INSETs to me, but 5 days or 6 days, I don't know if it's going to make much difference. Really.
Well, I don't think this isn't about doing less work. This is about, like you go into INSET day and you might have training on maths in the morning.
Yeah.
And like there's this new approach, like when mastery was introduced in 2014 and the new curriculum, there was a lot of CPD going on about how to teach mastery properly. This is saying, okay, in that we get training on CPD, we get training on maths, training on technology, training on English writing. In the same way, we need to have dedicated time to have that collaborative approach we spoke about, where everyone has to be in the same room, and the only thing you're all discussing is well-being and workload.
Right.
Do you think
for that? I get you now. Sorry.
Yeah. So so it's basically saying, okay, we might have to do a bit less training on history or maths over the 5 days, but maybe half of one of the day, everyone is in a room and you have that discussion. I don't necessarily think that will, in a toxic school, bring about much change whatsoever.
No, I don't know. I feel weird. I don't agree with the government, but I don't really disagree with them either. To be honest,
in what way?
In the fact that they're saying, nah, you've got 5. Just.
I agree with that.
Just reschedule your year.
But do you think it would even be useful to do that? What do you think will come out of doing that?
I think it'd be useful like one time at the start of all this.
Would you want to keep it up?
You might have to, but to set the culture, maybe to be like, this is a thing now that we do. Yeah, maybe it is worth doing it once a year, once per year in one of the INSETs, just talking about well-being and like what the school. It'd be quite interesting to explore how, in that day, here's our school plan for the year and how we're going to tackle workload, and you're all part of it. We've all got to do it in the same way that if I introduce a new math scheme, you've all got to do it for a year, and then we can evaluate it. I
guess knowing in ahead of time over the year what you'll be introducing is cool as well. If you've got the SLT member and that governor, like we talked about earlier, it would be cool to go to your staff at the start of the year, I think, and say, right, this year, look, we're looking to transform the writing curriculum, and we're also looking to transform the history curriculum, for example. At least then you could sit down and say, okay, right, if we're going to do that, then we have to agree now with everyone in the room. Maths leads, we're just going to keep chugging along. Art leads, we're going to not do that competition this year because that was extra workload. Because we're going to put X amount of hours extra into doing this, we have to find X amount of hours somewhere else to not put it in. We
were going to do, on our 5th INSET day this year, we're going to revamp the geography curriculum as well, but we can't do that now because we've now got this INSET on well-being. So actually, it's already working. We've got one less INSET day this year to revamp another curriculum.
No, you just did your own time now.
That's the problem, isn't it? Ideally, schools are, if let's say they've got 5 INSETs planned, right, and in each one they're going to do some training. Ideally, just drop one of them now. You now get rid of one of those and you put this workload in. Yeah. What's going to happen is, in those kind of schools, is like, cool, now we're going to squish 5 INSETs worth of training into 4 and then have this.
So. And then when we finish, go, okay, guys, carry on. Finish that off in your own time.
So realistically, just having a 6th one does kind of make sense to me because that way it's the middle ground, I think. I know we're going to talk about absence, but my honest opinion is losing one day at the start of the last, like you've lost a day at the start of every term apart from one, let's say you do it that way. Losing one more day, okay, fine, we'll mitigate it, we'll make up for it, it's fine. We can deal with kids missing one day.
A day off on all terms apart from one to having a day off on all terms.
On all terms, so the 6th term, I just think...
If all kids miss a lesson, it's different as well. If all kids miss a day, it's very different.
You just shunt everything back, right? Yeah. And let's be real, like, come on. Well, how many years go past where at least one day doesn't kind of out of nowhere just get completely ruined by something?
Oh, completely.
And you have to, and the kids aren't, there's some fun day happens or a day out, a trip, whatever. Like, come on. We can deal with one day, one planned day a year. I
think before we go on to like the real juicy thing that really caught my attention.
Like we're an hour in before we get to the main bit.
No, it's not, but I guess it is really. This is just going to be a longer podcast, guys. I hope you're enjoying it. Have a little. Don't pause it. Keep playing it, but use this time to just reflect on how.
Maybe we should do the jingle in a minute, and so people can pause it.
Okay, let's do the jingle after this bit because I think we're going to come on to the one part of it now, which is a list of things that this body have said teachers should not do. And it's fascinating. It is really fascinating. So we'll come on to that. But I think if we're talking about the general tone of this workload reduction task force, I'm skeptical because the general tone is all of these points. We talked about the two main ones that the government responded to.
Yep.
Yes and no. Okay, whatever. The main point of all the rest is always be on workload. Be ready to change and manipulate what we say helps workload. Review it every term. Have someone across the school and the governors, have someone across the school in this school. Basically, use the reduction toolkit, push that, make it better.
Yep.
And that's ongoing thing. I think that's all fantastic. However, I'm really skeptical about workload being reduced in school until Ofsted sort it out.
Yeah.
Until there is not that pressure on a school to deliver, there is only one reason that we're putting all of this work already in as teachers and going above and beyond. It's because of the stress of Ofsted and being held accountable and that one word judgment coming in and completely rinsing an entire profession for everyone who works at that school, especially for the SLT. Until we reduce the pressure on our SLT, who in the most part work incredibly hard for our children and really push amazing change forward, is going to be between a rock and a hard place of teachers saying, no, I'm not working anymore, I'm not doing anymore, and Ofsted saying, well, you've got to revamp this whole thing and work towards all of these standards that we've just introduced.
Scrap performance-related pay, scrap Ofsted gradings as well. Because you know what? I think if I was a head teacher, I'd be a lot less worried.
Yeah.
If I was sat there thinking, yeah, this workload, even if I was on board with the workload, right, I'm thinking this is all great, but at the end of the day, if Ofsted come in and call us a requires improvement school, we'll all be in a worse place, workload and stress. You know, just get rid of that horrible, stupid grading system.
Yeah.
And it is stupid. I'm not afraid to say that. It's so
It's
feisty.
stupid. It's stupid.
But it is. It's just get rid of it. Ofsted needs a revamp.
Yeah.
It needs a complete revamp. They're supposed to improve standards. They don't. All they do is stress teachers out.
Yeah.
They're not even that good at doing it. You might get a good inspector. You might not. Pot luck. Mr. P says that all the time.
Yeah.
It's pot luck what you get.
Yeah. There was a video recently of a head teacher talking about their experience with Ofsted, and an Ofsted inspector said to her, if we don't try and break you as a head teacher, how do we know you're worth it? How do we know that you're good enough for the job?
I'll tell you what, I did watch that and I was like, is that true? Because that seems...
I can imagine
like mad propaganda.
I mean, you calling her a liar, Hayden.
I don't know. Just even that, I was like, I can't even fathom. Surely a human being didn't do that.
It's unreal.
But
anyway,
they did,
so we're going to talk about what happens next with this report. These were the initial findings. So we'll talk all about that. It does include Ofsted. We'll do that really quickly at the end. But I really want to go on now, after this short jingle, this list of 23 things teachers shouldn't do. It's fascinating.
Stick around.
Thanks for sticking around. That was a long break. You've really got good attention, guys. Yeah, so Hayden, scroll down, mate. Scroll down. We're going to go to this list of 23 things. Now, bit of background whilst Hayden finds the mouse and his eyes and knows where things are. This is a list of 23 things. This list existed before. So anyone who's been teaching for a long time, over 10 years, you may remember that, again, another thing the beautiful Michael Gove did, who was fantastic for education in this country at every turn. We're shaking our heads, so anyone's not watching. He got rid of this list. And the point was, schools do not need to be babied and head teachers and teachers told what they should and shouldn't be doing. It's down to the school. If the school wants to say teachers do this because they're in charge and they know what they're doing, it's fine. We're not going to have government tell you what not to do. When in all reality, all that happened was this list got rid of and then everyone was like, okay, you can do all of these things, please.
Yeah, that we were telling you not to do before. Now you can.
Yeah, now you can. Do they really think there'd be like much nuance here? But they can do it now. Yeah. No, I'm going to choose not. No, of course.
It's weird, isn't it?
Of course we're going to do it.
Since then, workload and stress has got worse.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It's weird. It's almost like it did just not work at all.
Yeah, that's odd.
But
again, this list of 23 things, we're not going to go through all of them, but I will link it in the description to this podcast. So you can go to the podcast. All the information we've got is from Schools Weekly or Schools Week. We'll put the information up there anyway. So
we'll read the title of it just in case anyone's lost where we are. So this is the full list of administrative tasks the task force says teachers shouldn't have to do. So we started our teaching career in 2015, 2016. So not long after this list would have been scrapped. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting to me now looking back, because having found that out, this whole list was on the lips of loads of experienced teachers when we started. Yeah. And they were saying things like, no, we absolutely should not be spending our time putting data in. We should not be spending our time doing this admin, not teaching, like literal admin. And I remember sat there going, yeah, of course we do. Part of the job.
What's part of the job? Because we trained in a time where this list didn't exist, and we were like, yeah, of course, it's just part of what we do. So it's really interesting now. We've made highlights of some of the ones that stood out for us for various reasons. If you want to see the whole list, go and click above. But we're going to go through some now because some really stood out like a sore thumb, and others I wanted to ask because I don't see it as a problem. I don't think teachers do these things already.
Well, yeah.
So some of them, the number one thing, and I think a lot of teachers out there be thinking, oh, I do this, and I know that I've spent a lot of time doing it to the point now where I just refuse. I'm like, no, it's silly, and it's good to see that this is coming back in now.
Yeah.
Managing and transferring data about pupils into a school management system, or printing electronic records for paper filing, or more specifically as well on this list, reformatting data that already exists and then re-entering it into multiple different systems across the school. Essentially, it's data entry. As a teacher, it is now going to be explicit in this list that I am not expected to spend my time typing numbers into a thing.
Yeah.
There is no point me doing that, specifically when it already exists and it needs to be in four different places.
That's another level. I mean, when we started our career, that was a buzzword. I remember people used to call it triple assessments. Triple assessment, and that has fizzled out over the years where people have been whittled down. All those people have quit, and then all the new people didn't know about it. But it was a big thing when I started, but it was like, no, it's really, really, really bad if you have to enter data into a system, then you're told to put it onto another one. Oh, it needs to go in here because we need to compare stuff now, so I need you to copy that information into this one. It's terrible, and I've always begrudged it. I hate doing it. It takes so much time. Like, for example, when you have assessment weeks, right,
Sure.
which all schools do, it already takes longer.
We have to marking
the tests than it would do like marking lessons that day. So we're already well over what we'd be normally to be doing. To then have to sit there and put in ones and zeros, or have to put in scores into 3 different places, it is just such.
By the way, when we've got a part of them to like get on through, because we've got English, we've just done the maths paper.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we did history that afternoon. We've got a whole pile of history books. You know, teachers need to spend time doing teacher jobs.
But on the flip side, who does it then? Because we do need that data.
So this is going to be a theme all the way through, right?
Okay.
Because I think it's all well and good putting this list in, but I completely agree. And it's that devil's advocate again. It's like, teachers want to have our cake and eat it sometimes.
Yeah.
The problem is that they've been squeezing pay for teachers for so long that we're at the point now where we're like, no.
Yeah.
I truly think, maybe I'm being naive and maybe you'd get used to it, but if there was any kind of form of keeping up with inflation and not having 0% being completely frozen for that whole time in our first 6 years of teaching, I truly do think that we'd be much more up for just continuing with the job. I think knowing that my pay has been absolutely whittled away in terms of inflation, and where I would have been even 10 years ago at this point in my career, it makes me really reluctant to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I think I much more would be like, yeah, all right, I'll do a club.
But let's be real, because it does come down to the point where it is useful to have this data.
Yeah.
Assessment data is extremely useful for schools, and gap analyses are extremely useful for your teaching.
Yeah.
So they need to be done.
Yeah.
Who does them? And I do actually think there's going to be maybe a bit of a joke here running through where every single answer to all these things is schools need to be paid more so that they can have someone that does it.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't think, I can't see another answer. Yeah. The answer can't be, we now give it to the office staff.
Yeah.
Everyone working in school is maxed out plus 50% on their job. Every single person, I promise you. There's no one in a school who's having a job. I've got a cushy deal. I do 6 hours work, but I'm paid for 10 every day. Yeah. No one is in that position. Yeah. So I do just think it's like, okay, I shouldn't have to do it anymore as a teacher in my free time for no money. And there's no one else in the school that can do it, but we need it done.
So I think it should be, and this is what we do sometimes in our school, teaching assistant, instead of supporting for one lesson, they're going into the data.
Okay.
So that's a way where it doesn't cost any more, but a lot of people will be upset. Look at that line, they could be helping 4 children do that one preposition sentence. It's like, okay, they could be. But it means I don't spend 2 hours after school today doing it myself. So do you know what? They're going to just put it in. I think it has to be. We're going to have a lot of that. And if people don't like that, okay, give us money to hire someone to
fund
do it.
schools, and we'll have a manager that does all of this stuff.
Exactly right, because this is the problem we're in now. There's no funding, so it falls on us a lot of stuff.
We're going to talk about academies later, but here's one of the perks of being an academy where you can absolutely just rip off your staff anyway, is that you can save money by not paying your staff properly to employ these kind of people. So maybe we should all, the government were right, let's all become academies, then we can rip everyone off.
I can't wait to, guys, stick around, because if you're listening all this thinking it sounds good, just wait. Anyway, we're going to talk about academies.
So yeah, that's that one. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
Someone's got to do it. Either someone's time is repurposed in school and there's not extra time, or we have money to employ someone to do these
or you put
roles.
time in before to know that data goes in one place and everyone uses it from that.
This is where the workforce might come in really handy, because they might be able to think of I don't know the answer, but they might be able to sit down and think of a solution where it's like, teachers still can do this because we've now put in the system where we've just freed up 3 hours, 3 hours of their time on this assessment.
Well, I don't mind, and maybe I'm still wrong with this. I don't know how to interpret this fully. Maybe it'll be more clear by the time they finish. But I don't necessarily think it's bad right? That I mark the test and put their score in somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not above it.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I'm better than people.
Yeah, completely.
I don't put numbers into spreadsheets.
Yeah, no, of course not.
It's just that I'm doing it at 8 p.m. At home.
Or for the fourth time of the same data.
That kind of thing. So that needs to be scrapped. So re-entering data does just need to be scrapped. Like we need to stop doing that. Schools need to sort their systems out so you're not putting in your data in 3 different places. It's ridiculous. But when it comes to just doing important jobs like actually putting data in to see gaps,
that's part of our assessment, in my opinion. That's part of
it's important.
PPA. We get it every week. I know it's not enough time, whatever, but part of our job is to assess the children.
If someone said to me, okay, on assessment weeks, Friday afternoon, you've got 2 hours, you're being covered that day. All you need to do in that 2 hours is just put your data in. I'm like, cool, thank you, because I'll do that. It's in the job time. Of course I'll do. I'll do anything you want in that job time.
It's almost the same as saying, okay, by the way, this week after school for an hour, you need to teach another maths lesson. You'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Like, why then is it okay to tell me?
Hayden, you're right, Head. This tonight, 8 p.m. 4 of your kids couldn't make it. Can you do that maths lesson again tonight, 8 p.m? Yeah, sure. I'll do it. I'll do that. No, of course I wouldn't. So I'm not also going to sit there and put ones and zeros into a spreadsheet at 8 p.m.
I agree.
Anyway, that's that one. Move on.
Next one, really, I love this one. It's something I've stopped doing. I think it's nonsense. I did it a lot when I was younger, amazing, because I thought it was really important. Explicit now, teachers should not produce photographic evidence of practical lessons.
Yeah.
I think they
don't have to. You can do it if you want.
Yeah, of course you
have
can.
to do it.
I might do it sometimes because maybe it's a beautiful piece of art and they're going to take it home and maybe I just want it in their book. But if I don't, it's not bad. It's not something that I can be asked to do because guess what? Planning and teaching and still marking and assessing a practical lesson is still planning, teaching and assessing a practical lesson. There's that trust there, which is like, oh, unless there's a picture of deans in the book, how do I know they had the deans
that's
out?
it, isn't it? It's the trust. All I was going to say was scrap it because do you know what? It's just a stupid way of checking that teachers have done the thing. Yes, they have. If they wrote the thing in their book and said they did it, they did it. If you really want to look at their plans, look at their plans.
Yeah, even if they didn't write in the book, but you know the planning. Did you walk through the room and the kids were sat watching a film?
No, we didn't. Okay, be a better head then.
Honestly.
go and look at what your teachers are doing. For God's sake, I don't know.
I think that's
a
really
harsh
easy
comment. But
that
was me. You don't need to look
they're
at
getting on with all the safeguarding stuff, Aidan.
You don't need to look at what your teachers are doing every day. But just trust them.
Yeah, next one. This was really this was something that I thought straight away. Yeah, okay, sounds good, but we need stuff though. Yeah. So this is interesting.
It's funny because I thought that.
Creating or copying files perceived to be required in anticipation of an inspection from Ofsted. This was the ultimate example to me of what a ridiculous thing to put in a list that teachers don't have to do while simultaneously not completely revamping Ofsted itself.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I fully agree. Ofsted inspector comes in. We had Ofsted recently, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we did obviously print and copy all of our important documents and have them in front of us. And some of those things we wrote up in the week before because we were like, actually, this needs to be more concise.
Sure.
Like, we need to have this in a nice, concise way so we can be like, hey, look at the stuff we do.
Sure.
Of course we did that. And if we didn't, it would have been picked up and we would have looked stupid. It would have looked worse. Because in the current framework, the Ofsted inspector would have been like, okay, you're not prepared. You're not very good leaders. You've got nothing to show me. It's terrible. It requires improvement. Of course we need to do that. That's a stupid one.
It wound me up. That's cool. But I actually just think it's wrong. I think maybe this is just for teachers. If you've got a TLR and you're leading something, maybe then that comes under there and some of this stuff doesn't apply, right? So as a class teacher, still, the history lead, the geography lead, the PE lead, I bet in your school don't have TLR.
Yeah.
And what if they get deep dive in history? Sorry, the 23-prong list said that I don't have to prep anything. Yeah. Do you think that's going to wash?
I reckon we've probably misunderstood this bit though, because I reckon there's a deeper thing here. Maybe it's just a good thing.
This is creating.
I know, but I think this is probably talking about those schools where it's like Ofsted could come anytime in the next 5 years, and they're constantly asking their teachers to produce extra things or copy certain things just in case. Everyone has to keep an Ofsted folder in their classroom of your current lessons. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that, where it's like, that's probably what it means. I think we've been lucky enough to not... That is not the environment we even work in, so it's hard to even perceive it. But I know that schools exist where weekly teachers' workload is increased on the fear that Ofsted are coming in. If Ofsted's come in next week, you don't want to be caught short without these things, so always have them ready. They're worthless a week later because you have to update them with the next thing.
Yeah, I think
so that...
Do it when Ofsted come, not every week in case.
Like, when we found out Ofsted were coming the day before, obviously we went and printed a bunch of stuff for them. That's fine. But
this next one is something that I'm blind to this, but it's in there, so it's obviously a problem. But it's something I read and I thought, that's not something we ever do, is it, as teachers? Yeah. So interesting if you're listening and you do this. Producing and collecting analysis of attendance figures or investigating pupils' absence. Neither of those things we should be doing as a teacher. Yeah. I think it's a huge issue right now, which maybe it's been put on teachers' door because
I've never done that.
Teachers see them, but I've never ever experienced that.
No, I can imagine a school perhaps saying like, "Oh, if someone's away, could you just give the parents a ring after school?" I can imagine that slipping in.
Sure.
And I'd be interested if you're in that situation, please do write to us.
Yeah.
How can they write to us, Dylan?
They can find us. Honestly, the best. I've not actually checked the email in ages. So if you've emailed us,
brilliant. It's great sales.
But Instagram, that's the place to be. Follow us on @TeachStreetRepeat Podcast on Instagram. We don't ask for much, guys. If you've got this far in the podcast and you haven't given us a 5-star review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it. And if you could follow us on Instagram, is a nice growing community.
Do you remember when you used to do the app for our email
and
our
now.
Instagram, then Threads, and also Twitter?
Talk
to us on Instagram or we won't bother.
Yeah, not on Twitter anymore. Come to Instagram. Instagram's the place. Okay,
Yeah,
Instagram's the place.
Anyway.
To be.
Well, I forgot what I was saying now.
No, that's fine. We're talking about people's absence. I don't think it's much of a problem. This next one, again, is in the same kind of thing. Responsibility for producing, copying, and uploading and distributing bulk communications to parents and pupils. Again, I think most offices do that. I read this and I thought it bulks out the list a bit, but is that really happening in schools?
Yeah, it's a weird one because I think we split that up, right? The producing bit. I'm sort of like, I don't know though, because if I organise a trip,
sure,
I do kind of think it's
what's that? If you organise a trip. Let me very quickly tell you the next thing on this list.
Hang on.
Go on.
Yeah, I know it comes to it. I know. Okay, go on, say it now.
Sorry, but I this is something I didn't understand, so you can make the link here.
Yeah.
Teachers should not administer anything relating to school visits, trips, and residentials and of work experience.
Yeah.
So no administration related to that. No booking, no calling, no sorting. How will a trip happen?
Maybe we're being naive here. Maybe have just fallen down into that sinkhole of, well, actually, I tell you what, I have worked in a school before where that was true.
Right.
And we had a person whose role, they were dedicated to this, was all you had to do was fill in a little form saying this is where we want to go with this class, and give it to them, they do all of it.
Right.
They did all of it. So they looked it up, they looked at the price, the cost, the timing, they booked it, they booked the coaches,
Wow.
they made the letter, they sent it out to the parents.
Yeah.
So it could exist, but it is a hard one because right now...
It's true though, should it be in our job? Should it?
Well, clearly not, But it is one of those things where right now I'd feel very guilty if I went out to our office staff who I know are equally completely rammed with workload, right, and said to them, I want to go on a trip to the Kent Life thing. I'm going to do a day there next term sometime. Can you sort that out? Cheers.
Yeah.
I would rightfully, they'd be like, no.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, obviously I'll sort that out.
Yeah, they're doing too much stuff.
I don't know, but there you go. Maybe we just fall into that trap.
Sorry, so that's producing, copying stuff and uploading and distributing anything that goes out.
Yeah, so the producing bit was for me, that's what I was talking about really, was like, of course I'm going to produce the letter to say to the parents we're going to go on this trip.
Like a newsletter as well.
The parents, the office staff might check the letter or copy it and give it to me, or they might distribute it via the school website or something, but... Yeah, I'm gonna at least produce the content of the trip that I want to take the kids on.
Yeah, I just think this list is cool in many ways, but there are some holes in it, and I think it felt like they were bulking out. Maybe they're just being really, really cautious, but I think they've gone too far sometimes.
But hopefully, I've just proved as well with the other analogy that you can have a system that exists where you actually
that's true,
and teachers can just focus on teaching.
And this is why we're saying it now to all you guys. If you've got experience with this and you're thinking, guys, no, this is needed, let us know, tell us. And ordering supplies and equipment, another thing. I'm the person who knows what we need because I've planned everything. Let's say I've planned a unit. I recently planned an art unit, and it was printing, it was weaving, it was all to do with textiles and stuff like that. How am we supposed to deliver that without me ordering it?
Okay, devil's advocate, was it your decision to have that unit of planning?
No.
Did someone tell you this is what you've got to teach this term?
No. Oh, sorry. Yes, someone told me.
So you didn't originally decide to do that. So I think it could be fair to say, okay, SLT have decided that you're doing this complex art thing. They can sort out the supplies for you.
Do you not think that them doing that would be them coming to me and asking me what I need? And then I still have to tell them and I still have to find it and I still have to do it.
I guess you could argue that if they have come in with this scheme of work, whoever's come in with this scheme of work, maybe part of their role should be knowing all of the extra supplies that teachers are now required to get and just ordering it for them.
Yeah.
In the same way that I'd kind of just expect, pens and books to be ordered.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think that this is talking about daily equipment? It doesn't make that stipulation.
I don't know. And maybe, again, it's not even talking about the first stage, which is just knowing what we need. It might be that in some schools, the teachers have to actually do the whole process, like email the company and do the actual order. Whereas in a lot of schools, that they do half and half.
You put a sheet in.
Give us a little form, tell us what you need, and we'll do the rest. Because I think that situation is okay. If I desperately needed pencils,
but 90% of the job is filing through the website and the magazine and seeing the numbers and finding it and working out how much it will cost and saying how much you need.
Well, again, you're assuming that this teacher would have to do all that. Right. I'm imagining there's a sheet where it says I need more pens and books.
Right.
I don't care what they are. You would know the pens and books that we order for our school. I'm just telling you I need more of them.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's
for a
acceptable.
specific thing. I think it's different now. For a specific art unit, you're going to have to know what. I can't just put fabric and hope you know.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, that one, it goes back to my other one. I just think, okay, if you decided, if you took it upon yourself to change your art unit and you were like, I really want to do this thing, then maybe, all right, you need to have a head on it.
But then that'll make people not want to do that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. There's no, again, it's an open discussion.
I guess the extreme would be, imagine someone came to you and they the SLT changed your curriculum where 3 times a week now, you needed to have tons of equipment and you weren't planning on making these changes. You were quite happy with your curriculum before. And they said, now 3 times a week we do these things and you constantly need to order stuff. I think you'd be reasonable to be like, okay, you've made these changes, so I will deliver them and I'll look through the lessons, but you do need to just supply me with this stuff without me having to order it 3 times a week.
I've got 17 IEPs to go through. I haven't got time to do that. God.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Administration of cover for absent teachers. This was interesting because I know there are some schools certainly where it does kind of fall on them to go around and ask, cover supervisors, oh, can you cover this point?
I think it's a big
chase
problem.
it all up. I think that's a huge problem. I thought that was something where I think that needs to be addressed in a lot of schools.
But I can give you a really real life example from very recently. Is I went off on paternity for 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks we had an assessment week. So all of those tests that I'd be marking and gap analysing and putting assessments on for in my evenings fell on someone else. Someone else had to do it. So there was loads of administration in terms of people in my team. They had to sort out tons of stuff for me to be covered for those 2 weeks. And it's like, I ended up feeling bad about it.
Yeah, of course.
Even though really it's not my fault the system is broken like that. But it definitely highlighted the fact that that's
you
a
were
problem.
on paternity leave feeling bad about your job.
Yeah, feeling bad that someone else has got to do the free work that I would have done
in
the evenings.
Because we might get like covering, and cover is different as a teacher. They're not paid past school. They don't sit and mark they might sit and mark something. Again, some people do cover. I know you mark because I've had cover people come in. But some who are by the book will leave at 3:30, and if it's not their problem if stuff isn't done. Yeah.
So that's a classic example of just administration required by other people to cover my absence. And it happens all the time. People are absent all the time, and it's very much just if someone's sick in the morning, right?
Sure.
And I can't come in today. I think it's quite normal. I think it's quite normal for a school, to say, okay, the team around you, can you just sort out? Yeah. Can you go and find their lessons and print it for them and sort it out for them? It's like, it's not really your job, is it?
No, I can't actually. The last one we're going to talk about, again, the rest of the list, guys, in a link in the description. I'll say above. It's a podcast. There's nothing above.
In the description below in this YouTube video.
I don't know. There's a description. This last one really made me laugh because it's really vague, and I think it sums up kind of like the hit and miss nature of this whole list. Some of it's great, and some of it I just find a bit weird. It simply said bulk photocopying.
Yeah, I remember when we saw this list, we were both like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, because it can mean so much stuff. We've kind of already covered the distribution of bulk communication, so it obviously doesn't mean that. But does it mean bulk photocopying for your team?
Yeah,
because
I don't know.
We do bulk photocopying because
I
it's
only
what we
do bulk
plan. Yeah,
photocopying.
because it's what we plan, and it's easier for me to be copying one lesson like 100 times than it is for me to copy every single lesson 30 times. It's easier to get my head around, and as a team, we decided to do that.
I feel like it even needs to be that statement even needs to be about photocopying in general. Like, just stop photocopying. Teachers spend so much time photocopying in general. That could be a point to make. But bulk photocopying just seems weird because it suggests that there's some photocopying that's not bulk, really, for a start. Because realistically, everything I've got 32
some staff
kids.
just did, true. But some people will just print for their class as and when. And other people, like us, we bulk, as in, I'll print history for everyone. Yeah. And then someone else will print geography for everyone.
Yeah, which actually saves you time overall.
Yeah, it does more efficient.
So it is weird. Like, stop bulk photocopying, go back to doing it every day. That's worse. I don't really know what I mean by that.
And if their point is that there's too much photocopying, spreading it out doesn't help.
It's either the photocopying or not photocopying. It's not the bulkness.
It's not how you do it that's going to cause me to have
it's the amount of photocopying I have to do overall across the year that's the problem.
Right. So
the other day, just real quick, just speaking of photocopying, I was just speaking to my team, and we were sat there trimming sheets like you do every single day. And I was like, I wish there was a metric somehow. It obviously can't exist. I wish I knew how many sheets of paper I have trimmed in my career. How many times I've done this on the slicer. Because it's got to be like, if we had the numbers, I reckon they would be.
That's crazy.
Stupidly high numbers, wouldn't they?
Do you mean, okay, so how many times, okay, we're going to go into detail here about something that doesn't need to go into detail. Do you mean how many times you've moved it, or how many individual pieces of paper?
Both. I was thinking about both.
So individual pieces of papers would be I would be shocked if it's not millions.
Yeah, I think it'll be in the millions.
Maybe I'm completely wrong off there, but my gut is millions.
I think about this. Come on,
nearly 10 years. Well, I think in a day, right?
In a day,
roughly. There's 3 lessons in a day.
Honestly, like 100 bits of paper, I reckon.
More. There's 3 lessons a day. That's one sheet on each kid each day is 100.
Yeah.
Let's say on average, there's probably 2 or 3 sheets. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
200. So let's say 200 a day. That's 1,000 every week.
Yeah.
That's 1,000. Have we been teaching for 1,000 weeks? So it's 50 weeks.
So 52
38
weeks.
38 weeks.
38 weeks, okay.
38 weeks.
38,000 sheets a year.
38,000 sheets
of paper.
Oh my God. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 38,000.
Is that right? 200 a day?
Something like that, yeah.
No, what have we done?
I don't know. It's plenty. It's loads.
Wait, where did 38 come from? Oh my God.
38 weeks that we teach.
Oh,
so it's 1,000 sheets of paper. It's 1,000 sheets of paper a week.
Oh, 1,000 sheets a week, yeah.
38,000 a year. It's not millions then, is it?
No.
38,000. 38,000 a year, though.
10 years and nearly 380,000. Come on, so probably more, though, because like you said, it is on average.
Yeah, some afternoon lessons.
I'd say I've printed half a mil sheets of paper I've put for a trimmer myself.
How many trees is that?
How many hours is that?
Oh, my God.
I don't care about the planet. I care about my time. How many hours of my time as a teacher, as a professional trained teacher, have I spent cutting paper?
And that is where we need to move to. We need to get into the 21st century.
This is where we need to get rid of bulk photocopying. Bulk photocopying has got to go.
What you need to do is instead of cutting 38,000 in, let's say, 1,000 cuts, you want to be cutting 38,000 in 38,000 individual cuts.
Yeah.
In fact, get rid of slicing. We're going to get the scissors out, mate. We're going to cut every single individual one. That will help workload massively.
Oh, God.
Anyway, you can find the rest of the whole report again in the link. Go and click it.
You haven't said that yet.
Go and click it, the link. But okay, a couple of things now then. One's what's going to happen next. Okay, so what's going to happen next very quickly is basically they're going to carry on looking at this. This is just the initial findings. This is going to carry on. And luckily it is going to move towards Ofsted. Okay. Also, they're going to look under the microscope at the STPCD. That is the School Teachers Paying Conditions, an official document that's all schools, right? Mm-hmm. All schools have to follow the Schools Teachers Paying Conditions, which all of this is linked to, because everything that we've been suggested so far is going to go into the Schools Teachers Paying Conditions. And we're so lucky in this country, right, Hayden, that every single school has to obviously follow the Schools Teachers Paying Conditions, right?
Ooh, Dylan, I think you're giving a bit of a misconception there about how the country works.
Hayden, what's the bombshell after this 1 hour and a half discussion we've just had about all of these things that the government are going to agree to and bring in and change the schools teachers paying conditions so that all of us have a contract that we can really enjoy and go along with and reduce workload, Hayden?
All right, Dylan, calm down. Okay. The problem is, in this country, there are thousands of what we call academies or trusts.
Trusts tend to be more than one academy, don't they?
Okay.
So a school is an
trust.
academy. Yeah.
Okay, an academy trust. So a school can be an academy. And that simply means it's not run by... they've taken out the link of the local educational authority, and the government basically works straight with the school. It just cuts out the middleman. And the idea is it's run like a business now.
You're given X amount of money, and there's no one to... You decide your budgets.
Yeah.
You decide your...
It's not the council
rules.
giving you the budget.
Yeah.
Right? And the problem is, what comes with this is, it's run more like an independent business, and the STPCD no longer applies. They can make their own ruls.
So wait, Hayden, are you saying that all of these changes to the schools teachers paying conditions, even if they do go through, that an academy could turn around and go, well, we don't follow that in our contract?
Yeah, an academy can go like, no, we're okay, thanks, and carry on doing what they do. In the same way, and we've already experienced this in our lives, an academy can just change the pay scale. They can go like, nah, we're just going to make it less.
Should we double the amount of pay jumps and therefore half every time we go up, and then put it to do with pay and make it worse for everyone?
Yeah, really good. So So
do you remember there was that story of someone who we worked with who after like 6 years had gone up about 1 or 2 grand just because they could. And it wasn't this thing where it was like, oh, that's horrendous, that needs fixing. It was, well, we make our own rules, so even if it was a mistake, oh well.
Yeah, and mental, and she was a really good teacher, extremely passionate, really good teacher, and they just totally took advantage of her and shunted her pay by years.
In the same breath, every single time, if you were an NQT and you started and you did your year as an NQT, very often in a normal world, you'd been a teacher for a year, you'll go up 1 on the pay scale. In this situation, all the pay scales have been halved. So let's say there's 6, there's now 12, because each jump is actually half of a real jump. As standard, if you're an NQT, you go up half a jump. So you miss out on a grand. The absolute evil genius of this, by the way, is that even then on, if you went up 2 jumps, which by the way, obviously is just 1 actual jump, you were constantly half a pay scale behind where you would be. So every single year, this academy would be saving tens of thousands of pounds. And it wasn't just like, 1 year I'm behind. No, every single year.
Because you're always a grand behind.
You were a grand
behind. Every
behind.
single year they're paying you a grand less than what they would have been doing
Absolutely.
if you went up.
If they just went up.
That's just you.
Early on.
That happened. I remember that. I remember the start of my career and just being like, obviously you're timid, so I just accepted it. But I was really annoyed. I could see the scam straight away.
No matter what you did, even if it was performance related, you could have been absolutely fantastic. Well, you're an NQT, so half pay scale.
Yeah, the rule was, I actually remember this so vividly. I remember speaking to the head and I literally said, this can't be right because I'm only I've done my performance appraisal. Everything's been fine in my NQ2 year, but I'm only going up from point 1 to point 2 on our 12-point system.
Which was seen as 1 point was seen as like you didn't quite meet your targets.
Yeah.
2 was good, and there was always scope to go up 3, which was more than you would.
Point and a half.
No one ever went up 3.
Great.
It was either 2 or they could justify giving you less.
Unless you were quitting and they tried to keep you. But so I went up.
What's that? Wait, I'm quitting. I can suddenly go up 7 pay points.
Yeah,
that's weird.
So I went up. Well, obviously, you would have done the same. Went up one pay point, which was half a real pay point after my first year of teaching, the most grueling year of teaching as well. And I was like, and the response I got, because I remember it being so like harshly like, no, it's just no, that's the rule here. No, that's the rule. NQTs only. No. NQTs can't go. You're an NQT. The rule is NQTs only go up 1.
Do you know who made that rule?
Do you know you made that? Could you not make that rule? Because now I feel undervalued after a year when I know that in any other school,
that's the rule. Sorry, I can't do
an academy, I would actually just get paid up the next pay scale.
That would work if you were in a local authority school where they had to follow the rules. The person making the rules to turn around and go, no, that's the rule. That you've decided to save money so that you can have a 6-figure salary. Well done.
I'd love to do a whole episode on academies. So if you're listening to this and you work in an academy and you've got some mental stories of how they just changed the rules and make your life considerably worse than if you just went down the road and worked at a local authority school, please let us know because I'd love to do an episode on it.
If only we had 2 people here moved from a horrendous academy to a local authority school, and we definitely need your advice on that.
Loads of people with stories from the same.
Because everyone I trained with and worked with in that academy is no longer working. It's really weird.
No one. Their retention is 0%.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They save money. Anyway.
Yeah. So academies, going back to the point, academies don't have to do any of this, which is the burning hole because thousands of schools in the UK are already academies. After the massive push about 5 years ago by the government to say that all schools will be academies by 2020 or whatever it was, and then obviously loads of schools panicked and quickly became academies when they didn't have to because that got scrapped immediately.
Yeah. Guys, the answer is the free market isn't always the best thing, okay? And when it comes to our children's education and the well-being of people, let's not throw that to the free market.
Brexit.
The reason I became a teacher is because I did a work experience week in a recruitment company in London, and it was absolutely horrific, cutthroat. I became a teacher to make a difference, be good at my job, and help children. It's evolving lots of schools into the same kind of cutthroat industry where you get toxic bosses. It's a business. It's not. It's children's livelihoods. Children should get exactly what they need at all points, whatever that is, and it's broken right now. General election year. Let's see what happens, shall we?
Oh, crikey. This has been a really long episode.
I've really enjoyed it, though.
I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have joined in. And if you disagree with us, let us know so we can ignore you.
I was waiting to make the same joke, and you did it for me.
No, I actually would like to hear, because sometimes we say things and maybe our opinions are based on our own experiences, or we just don't know the full extent, and it is good to learn. So if you have an alternative opinion on any of those points, do let us know, and if actually we'll review it if we've been challenged.
We will, and maybe I'll check my emails.
Yeah.
Someone on Instagram, Kizzy, I know you listen. You've got this far. Hey, Kizzy. I've just remembered now because she sent a message after the last episode saying, really enjoyable. I've got a lot of points to make about this. It might be an email. And I'm really scared she's emailed us and I've just not seen it.
Oh, no.
So, Kizzy, if I've got this point, I will check my emails, I promise you. But I love getting messages from people. And what's great now about the Instagram, I think we're over 2,000 followers now on the Instagram, is, polls and questions and messages. It seems to be every day we're getting stuff in, which is really, really good.
More ammo.
Exactly, and I love it. And thank you for taking part in those polls and things that I post. And I hope you enjoy the memes that we make as well. I really enjoyed that. Let's do a very, very quick jingle and then we'll sign off.
Well, welcome back. Thank you for joining us for this long, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for waiting.
Cheers. Bye.